Hello and welcome to the Outsourced Accountants webinar, Future-Proofing Your Accounting Workforce. So before we get started, just a few quick notes. I'll just get you to, in the question or the chat box, let me know that you can hear me. So just put in hello and where you're from, whether you're from Sydney, Melbourne, the US, New Zealand. I know we've got listeners from all over the globe on this today. So just chuck into the chat, hello from Wellington, Sydney, Perth, Melbourne, US, Albury. So there's a lot of people jumping on to the webinar, which is great. So we'll get kick started straight away. So today's agenda that we're going to go through is around a range of topics that we're getting asked these questions all the time as we're at roadshows and we're speaking at events and out in the industry. What are the critical challenges that are facing accounting firms in the climate that we're working in today? The roadblocks facing accounting firm growth, and this is one of the big ones that we get. Your firm and strategies for growth versus the risk versus reward of this. The case for building a global accounting team. A lot of the listeners on today's webinar don't have global teams. So we'll talk a lot around the myths and insights from high growth firms and how they've been able to make building a global team work. Case studies of some of these leading accounting firms, and then some tips and action points. And as always, we have a live question and answer. So if you do have any questions at any time throughout the webinar, please pop them into the question box and we'll do our best to answer those either during the webinar or we can answer them at the end as well. So thank you for taking the next hour to spend with us to cover off these very important topics. So we're going to run straight into a poll quickly now, just to get a bit of engagement and to understand where you're at. So what is your main pain point for growth currently? So we're going to pop up the poll for you to be able to see. So is it getting good quality staff? Is it capacity issues? Is it around competitors? Is it lead generation, too busy? Is it products and services? So the poll is now running. So I ask you to quickly, we'll give you about another 30 seconds to run with this. Interestingly enough, everyone that's responded so far, 100% is around capacity issues. So we're seeing that slightly change at the moment. Not too uncommon when we do this type of question at any of the events we run or other webinars that we've run. It's very similar. Most accounting firms, the biggest challenge that they have is around capacity issues, which quite clearly you can see from the poll we're running now, 80% of firms' biggest challenge is around the capacity issues. So we might just close that poll off and we'll move into, hopefully some of the things we talk about today will really resonate with you and really be able to help you with that most common issue, which is capacity, followed by obviously getting good quality staff and then ultimately retaining them. So we're going to run into a second poll really quickly now. What's your key strategy for growth? Is it the business strategy and planning side of it? Is it solving the people issues? Is it the financial health of your business? Is it succession planning and exit? Or is it lacking of systems and processes? So what is the key strategy you need to implement to be able to grow your business? So again, we're seeing some of these results coming through. For most of the listeners on today's webinar, it's the business strategy and planning. There's a small percent of people today that are obviously looking at exit and succession. Systems and processing, surprisingly, is only getting a small amount. Most of it is really around business strategy and planning. So we'll let this one run for about another 5 seconds before we close that off. So we'll just close that poll off now, and not surprisingly, most businesses, the key strategy that they need to focus on is business strategy and planning. But when we talk to accounting firm owners and partners, one of the biggest challenges we find is that they don't have the time to be able to actually focus on planning the business, and they're stuck in the weeds in running the business, which related back to the poll that we had just prior, where capacity was the biggest issue. So we don't have time to actually rise above the day-to-day workflow to actually start mapping out what is our business strategy, what is our people strategy, where are we going in the future? And a lot of the challenges that we're seeing in the accounting industry, or the mega trends, is due to the landscape of the accounting industry changing. Now, we've seen this change, the early adoption countries of New Zealand first, then Australia with cloud technology, and now we're seeing the rest of the world catch up, but we're really seeing cloud computing and technology advancements have really changed the dynamics and changed the way that we run our accounting practices. So there's the dynamics are changing. Customer expectations. Customers are now expecting things faster, quicker. They're wanting us to be available for more hours of the day. With cloud technology, one of the benefits is that customers can now see their data live. But it's also one of the biggest detriments to our business is that they can now see whether or not we're up to date with their work. So a lot of these challenges that are coming from the dynamic changes that are happening in the industry because of technology are also pros and cons. We're seeing a real skills shortage across the globe of good quality applicants or team members. So you may, when you put a job ad up, you may get a lot of resumes, but you're not getting a high quality of applicant. The cost of labor globally is increasing, and we're seeing that the cost is prohibiting business owners from being able to deal with their capacity because the business revenues aren't following quite as quick. So a lot of these insights that we're seeing are leading to the capacity piece, which is all leading to obviously this globalization piece, which is really around the days where you used to have your team all based in one office, in one suburb, in one location, is no longer how we're seeing accounting firms are growing. Accounting firms are now starting to have global teams. They're starting to really globalize the way that they operate and run their businesses. And we're seeing the dynamics of that changing at a quicker and quicker pace on a daily and weekly basis. So when we're looking at some of the challenges that accounting firms are having, and we're seeing that a lot of these can be addressed with setting up a global team, but the technology advancements is probably the number one thing that accounting firms are really getting bogged down in. And I ask you this question: if you actually were to do an audit of every technology that you pay a fee for every month in your accounting firm, are you actually maximizing that technology that you're paying for? In a lot of cases, we have new clients that join us and start building a global team. And the first thing that their global team are focused on is actually getting the technology set up and used. We're seeing that so many people are using these cloud-based systems in inefficient ways. They're not using them to benefit the firm. They're actually becoming more and more of a hindrance. And there's just too many applications. Firms are getting app overload as opposed to applications that are really driving and helping their business. Like I said before, you know, customer expectations are changing, skill shortages, the cost of labor. These global trends are things that are real in the accounting space and are taking up a lot of the process and thought of business owners. But you can get help with this, and that's what one of the things we're going to talk around today is around how building a global team can help build capacity and how it is a long-term play as opposed to just a short-term strategy. So we're going to talk around what are the biggest challenges or the risk summary that firms have with setting up an offshore team. And a lot of firms that haven't gone through this journey, the original setup is probably where they see the biggest challenges or the biggest risk involved in doing it. It's also the control piece. But the offshoring model really increases the local team's productivity, improves their workflow. And I had another webinar that I was running this morning only for our clients. And a big part of that is where we had a few of our clients on the webinar. And what they were saying is that the work that their local team is now able to do, because their global team is taking a lot of that work and giving them capacity locally, it's creating a better environment. It's creating a more fun environment. And they're adding significant value to their clients to in the past, they didn't have capacity to even ring a client and ask how they're going. But a big part of building a global team or even looking at your accounting firm now without a global team is around getting the right people to do the right work with the right skills. And too many times we're seeing partners doing too much administration or too much HR or non-related to what they're good at. We're seeing accountants on average are doing somewhere like the latest study I saw was 400 hours a year an accountant is spending doing administration tasks. Now, why would they be doing that if you could have a lower cost or a more efficient person at a more effective cost doing that so that they could only do accounting work and only add value to their clients? So what we're seeing is a lot of our clients are growing their local team. The skills that they're growing locally are different to what their global team and the roles that they're growing globally. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So we're going to just quickly, just so I can get a gauge of the people that are on the webinar today, where you're at with whether you've got an offshore team, whether you don't, so I can direct some of the conversations that we have with that. So we're going to run a poll quickly now. Have you already got an offshore team? Yes, you already have a team, and we're talking about a team which are your dedicated employees full-time working for you. No, but you've outsourced some tasks, so you may have sent some tax returns to another provider to be able to do these. We're going to also talk about you've decided to do it but not yet implemented it, and then we're going to talk around no need for information or against it completely. So some clients are at those stages. So we're running the poll now for a bit over 30 seconds. So 45% of people on today's webinar need more information about it. 20% no, but we've outsourced some tasks. 20% of the people on the webinar, most of you are our clients that already have a global team, and we've got a few people that are against it. So we'll talk more around this. So we'll move on from this poll now and talk a little bit more specifically. So one of the biggest areas, or one of the biggest fastest growth areas within the outsourced accountant has been in the bookkeeping area. And the large part of this is we've been talking about this now for close to 2 years out in the accounting space. And a large part of it is that most accounting firms in the past have not wanted to do bookkeeping because it was messy, it was time consuming, it wasn't rewarding, and most staff locally didn't want to do the work. So what we've seen is a huge dynamic shift over the years with cloud technology being a massive enabler. And we're seeing the cloud vendors that are now, a lot more accounting firms are starting to go into bookkeeping. And I'm going to talk around the business case for setting up a bookkeeping division, because there's a real opportunity for accounting firms to be able to really leverage a bookkeeping division to make their overall compliance work more profitable, but to also be able to work with their clients in a real time where they have real accurate data on a day-to-day basis. So when we look at a typical accounting fee, that when we look at any of the research reports, the good, bad, or ugly, or any of those that are run globally, accounting firms on average per client are getting anywhere between $2,000 and $3,000 fee per client. When we look at bookkeepers, on the other hand, we're seeing that the average fee is anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000. So we're seeing an uplift in some cases of 2 to 5 times revenue for that. Now, most accounting firms, like I said in the past, have not wanted to do it because the work was messy, it was time consuming, no one locally wanted to do it. The biggest wave that we've been seeing over the last couple of years, particularly since we've been talking about this, is that accounting firms are now starting to embrace and bring in bookkeeping in-house. And what this is doing is allowing them to get the books clean, accurate, and up to date, so that when the tax season is in play, it's really just print and lodge. So the actual hard work is done throughout the year. They're able to control and work with the clients on a weekly basis and a more frequent basis. The other thing that I see as really changing, and one of the main dynamics, is that when you talk about who the trusted advisor is, in most cases, it is the bookkeepers, because they're the ones that are in regular contact with our clients. They're talking to them on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So when I ask the question of how often do you talk to your clients, and I'll ask you this now, how often do you proactively ring your clients just to say hello? How often do you proactively go and visit your client in their workplace just to say hello? And when we ask that to many accounting firms, most of the time, the answer is we don't, or we don't have time to do that. So what we're seeing is some huge changes with people's attitudes around seeing the benefit that having a bookkeeping division can do to your business, and what are the significant increases and benefits of doing that. So we're going to talk around building your own division where you're having the client data, you're processing it on a weekly basis. It's up to date, 24 hours a day. You're having more regular contact with your clients. We're really seeing that the relationship, sorry, the slides are jumping around a little bit here. The relationship is a lot stronger. You're going to increase your margin on the compliance work because most of the work is done throughout the year, as opposed to the way that most accounting firms are doing is getting it in at the tax season and then having to process it, cleaning up either how the client's done their own books or having to close up how they need it done for them to be able to lodge it. And we're also seeing a significant increase in revenue and the opportunity to increase revenue from this. So I'm going to talk a little bit more around the revenue case from it, to give you some numbers around it. So the latest research reports show that on average, a partner would manage 300 business clients. So if we're looking at having a standard bookkeeping service to an average type of client, it's $600 a month, which is the revenue per client. Now, if you're utilizing cloud technology and applications like HubDoc or ReceiptBank, each bookkeeper can generally run 30 clients per bookkeeper. We're seeing the cost of an offshore team. So to run these 300 clients, you would need roughly 10 staff offshore at a cost of $1,800 a month. That would give you a total cost of $18,000 to run this division. You definitely need a local Australian champion, or in this case, as if you were running a team of 10 with 300 clients, you would need two local champions, and their role would be 100% focused around onboarding new clients and talking and relating to clients on a daily basis. So their role is really more of what we call a BDM role, as opposed to a technical bookkeeping role, which is what we've seen it in the past. So two of those at 80,000, it gives you a total team cost of 30 or just under 32,000 per month. When you're looking at the revenue opportunity though, you're looking at around $180,000 worth of revenue if you're able to get all 300 clients onto a bookkeeping package. Now, after the staff costs, now obviously you've still got technology and other running costs, you're looking at around $1.7 or $1.8 million of additional revenue for the practice. And when we're looking at a typical accounting firm that has 2 partners and 13 staff and a typical revenue of close to $2 million, you're almost increasing your firm's revenue by 100% by introducing a highly valued service to your clients. And the side benefit of this is that you will generally get anywhere between a 50 to 70% time efficiency or time saving on your compliance work when tax season is there. So we're seeing some real benefits of having a bookkeeping division to enable you to add more value to your clients and to ultimately be able to process their year-end and tax work a lot quicker and more efficiently. So a lot of this is being driven though in the instances with our clients. So like I said, this is the fastest growing area within the outsourced accountant globally, and we're seeing a lot more clients implementing this. And a lot of it comes down to having a global team where the local team are focusing on the onboarding and the managing of the global team, and the global team are working on processing these transactions on a daily basis so that they are up to date, they are accurate. So we're seeing some of the real benefits of outsourcing, where the local team are able to harness their higher level of technical skills that they typically wouldn't be able to do because they're buried in doing work that is not suited towards their technical skills or their pay. And I'll ask this one question to you, and it's not in a poll, so it's more of just a question for you to reflect on. How many of your professional staff in your firm would you be getting 3 to 4 times revenue on every month from those team members? So are you getting, if you're paying your accountant 80,000, are you getting $240,000 worth of revenue out of them each year? Because when we're looking at the simple business philosophy of a third goes to the employment or employees cost, a third goes to running the business, and a third goes to profit. And what we see globally when we're talking to accounting firms is that most are not getting anywhere near the 2 to 3 times revenue that they should be getting. They really struggle with output from their internal team, and a lot of that comes down to the fact that they've got the wrong people doing the wrong work. So accountants doing 400 hours of administration, that's 400 hours of billable time you can put back if you're able to get the administration work onto another role within the business. So some of the real benefits are obviously around getting the right people to do the right work. you're focusing people on their core competencies as opposed to giving them everything and anything that they need to do. It obviously, for growing firms that have office space issues, it obviously gets rid of those issues. The reality of when we interview our clients, and I run a podcast that's out every week called the Offshore Accountant Podcast. And when we're looking at the answers of the people that I interview, the biggest benefit that this gives is that their local team are working on the right type of work, and their global team are taking away a lot of the capacity constraints that they've had in the past. That obviously makes a more happy workplace locally, as well as a more happy global team overall. And what we're seeing statistically is that pretty much 99% of our clients are growing both their local team while at the same time growing their offshore team. But the biggest value benefit that we get from the feedback from the employees working for our clients is that they're able to progress their roles in a local sense at a quicker rate, because they're not having to do a lot of the work that they would get buried in because of the capacity constraints if there was no global team. So we're seeing a significant amount of flow-on benefits to both the local team, but to the business overall. So when we're looking at what type of task should be sent to your new global team, we're really looking at anything that is done locally. So we have clients that are doing the full process, including talking to clients with their global team over in the Philippines, right through to some clients are just prescribing the set tasks that they're doing. But the thing that's the big difference when you're looking at having a global team is do not approach it from a point of view like you would from a local team member, because what we typically find is that the way our clients manage their local team is that they will give them anything and everything. They don't have specific tasks within a process to do, they have to do it all. And that includes the administration, and includes all of the work that doesn't necessarily match their skill sets. But when you're looking at building out a global team, you're really looking to define the tasks that you want done by the global team and the tasks that you want done by your local team. What are the key things that you want your local team to be involved in so that they can continue to maintain and foster those client relationships, versus what are the things or the process or the tasks that you want done by the global team? And the slide that we've got up at the moment shows some of the tasks that you can do from an accounting point of view. We also have finance roles, we also have marketing roles, we also have financial planning roles. We work exclusively with accounting and finance and financial planning practices, and we do any type of role that that type of business would need, which includes marketing, it includes administration. But if we're looking specifically at some of these accounting services or tasks, from a basic level, it could be reviewing accounts, process-based tasks, cash flow forecast, data inputs, conversions of softwares, corporate secretarial work, right through to some of the advanced services, right through to some of the growth services. So a lot of the time, our new clients have this perception that that type of work can't be done offshore, when the reality is that anything can be trained and done. And we've had clients that have been with us now for close to 5 years that are doing high level, highly complex, highly specialized work, all with their global team based in the Philippines. So it's more around what are the processes or tasks that you need done for your firm in the initial phases through to the maturity of over the years as you continue to grow. So I'm going to pop this poll question up now. What would you say is the biggest issue of having an offshore team? Is it the language or cultural barriers, security concerns, technology barriers? Is it the time zone, or is it the perceived quality of work? So we'll just get everyone to quickly answer the fourth poll. Just make sure it's popped up. So just run this poll quickly now. Not surprising, we are seeing the typical ones that generally come up. So why build a team locally and in the Philippines? And this is one of the things that we're going to talk about in a lot more detail today. And again, it comes out in a lot of the talking that I do at conferences and events throughout the globe, the webinars and the podcasts that I come. Building a global team is a long-term strategic positioning of your firm. It's not a short-term, it's not going to fix your short-term capacity issues. It's going to be working around building a strategy for how you deal with capacity over the next 12 months, 24 months, 36 months. It's really around building out your people strategy to be able to work out how can you deal with this growing capacity. So some of the reasons that the old way of outsourcing, which I'll talk a little bit more about in the future, is changing, is that people want to have their own dedicated team. They want to have them in a global environment. So they were looking at full-time employees in a very highly secure environment that work full-time for these firms. We're seeing that the firms are building a global team because there's some really highly skilled talent pools with large populations in alternative countries outside of the countries where they're operating and working. The turnover is lower in a global environment as opposed to locally. The time zones are very much aligned to what they work the same hours that you work. And we'll talk a little bit more around some of the reasons around why firms don't or are concerned about offshoring. So the old way of how outsourcing worked, and a lot of people can confuse outsourcing versus offshoring. So just to give you a quick rundown of what the differences are, is outsourcing is where you send some type of work to a provider who will complete that work and send that back. So an example may be a tax return. You'd send a tax return across to a provider, their team would process it. You don't know who within the team is processing it. You have no involvement in that. And then they send back a completed job done the way that they want it done. So that was the way that outsourcing typically worked in the accounting space in the past. But what we've seen, particularly over the last 5 years with a model like ours, is that you don't have any control in that environment. If that firm is growing, then the quality of their work may or may not be growing with that. And you can't control that because it's not your business and it's not your team member. So when I had my firm 7 years ago, I had an accounting and financial planning firm. I was outsourcing to providers, to 3 or 4 providers across Vietnam and India. And I had some real challenges because the more work I gave them meant that they were more successful, but the quality of work continued to drop. I love control, so I wanted to control and manage my own team, but I had no ability to be able to do that. I had no ability to know who was working on my work or the information that I was sending to them, who was actually getting that information and who had access to it, which is why we designed, when we built the outsourced accountants strategy and philosophy in the early days, it was around how do we help accounting firms to build their own team in a global environment, but it's just sitting in another office that can manage with all of the local and managed service needs that we need, so that the client can simply just work on process and output. So outsourcing and offshoring has really grown and changed over the last 4 to 5 years. We still get on a daily basis. It's risky from a security point of view. Now we know that globally, the data protection legislation, things like that are changing significantly. Legislation's being brought in on a daily basis to try and protect data. We're seeing security breaches of data come more and more common now that it is having to be played out in the public's eyes. But what we talk about from an outsourcing point of view is when you're sending your work to an external provider, you don't actually know who's working on your work. You're sending your data in a lot of cases via a portal, and you are not sure what happens with that data. So when you're managing your own global team, they're actually working in your environment. So they're either dialing into your server or they're dialing into your global applications, and you're able to set up the IT parameters and you're able to set up the control mechanisms to ensure that the team members only have access to the information that they should be having. And that's where we're seeing a large amount of our new clients are saying, we want to be able to control the process. We understand that having our own global team, there's a lot less risk involved in it. There's a big myth around the quality of work being done in a global team is a lower quality. And unfortunately, a lot of that came from the outsourced providers in the early days where the work was sent to them and sent back, and it was done the way that they wanted it done, but that wasn't necessarily in line with a lot of the accounting firms that were sending them the work, which is why we've pivoted the model that we use to have Here's your team member. You control the way that they do the work so that it's in line with your work papers, your process, and your systems. And we're seeing that the clients that have been with us, either new clients or longer term clients, are not having quality issues. And if they are having quality issues, in most cases, it's a lack of process or system that's breaking down within their firm. It's a firm quality process as opposed to a dedicated employee's quality process. Now, this is a new concept. Having a global team is a new concept in the Western world. Typically, outsourcing or offshoring was available to large firms. So in Australia and New Zealand, particularly for the last 5 years, outsourcing has gone from no one doing it to, when you ask the question when I speak at a conference, who's outsourcing or offshoring in some capacity, like when we asked today, the majority of people put their hands up. So in this side of the world, it's more around who's not outsourcing or offshoring. But when we're looking at the UK, the US, and Canada, we're really seeing that the early adopters are coming on. So we've had some US and Canadian clients and UK clients for the last 18 months starting along this journey, and it's now becoming more and more spoken about. But it is really a new concept still. It can mean lower prices. And we're talking about lower prices in that a lot of, one of the biggest myths that we have is that you're setting up a global team because you want to maximize profit and you want to reduce your costs to your clients. Now, in a lot of cases, the biggest reason why accounting firms actually start to build a global team is for capacity. We saw in an earlier poll today, how many of you on today's webinar are really, really struggling with capacity. It was over 80% of you, the biggest single issue that you have is capacity. So by being able to build out a global team, you're going to be able to get the right people doing the right work at the right cost, and you're going to be able to create capacity. And the biggest way to be able to build capacity is you're going to have 4 team members in a global team working in the Philippines for the cost of one in the Western world, whether it be in the UK, the US, Canada, Australia, or New Zealand, or any of the other countries. The cost differentiation is generally 1 employee locally to 3 to 4 in a global environment. So what that automatically gives you is a 300% increase in your people power, in the muscle that the firm now has to produce work. So we're seeing a huge capacity increase. And in most cases with our clients, after 3 or 4 years in this journey, the biggest challenge they have is they actually run out of work. So they need to start looking at how do we add more services, how do we add more value to our clients, or how do we attract new clients? Now, the biggest, one of the biggest ones that we have a lot of people say to us is that I'm the only one that can get this task done. There's no one better than me. Now, you know, this is just what I call the control freak syndrome. If there's no one better than you, you just haven't looked far enough outside of your world to understand that there are people better skilled and better suited towards you. And I love a quote that Jack Daly, he's a sales coach, an American sales coach who is phenomenal at what he does. And his wordings are, if you don't have a VA or an EA, you are your own virtual assistant, or you are your own worst enemy. So a lot of the time, people are thinking that it's only done to save costs, but the reality is, majority of the time when we're speaking to firms, and we're speaking to 10 to 20 firms a day in each of the regions that we operate, the biggest single issue that they have is capacity, and that is why they're initially putting in place their global team. There are certainly profit and cost arbitrage benefits when you do get the strategy up and running, but it's not a driving factor of why to do that. Majority of firms now are using it because they need to do it to keep up with competition. They need to be able to increase capacity in the firm in a cost-effective way. They need to be able to deliver the client services that clients are now demanding. Now, a big one that we also hear is offshoring only suits low-level tasks. And I interviewed one of our US clients this morning, Luke Geen, and his whole strategy for putting in offshoring was to be able to create capacity. But the biggest single thing that he's got out of this journey, and he's only been on this journey now for 5 months, is that, and the biggest myth that he has heard is that offshoring is only for low-level tasks. The reality is that we have all types of levels of work being done within our office. the longer a client's been with us, the higher level of work we're seeing being done. We're seeing audit work, we're seeing insolvency work, we're seeing complex business strategies being done over there, we're seeing tax work. Anything that is being done locally will probably be being done in our global team of over 850 staff. The level of work that can be done is significantly higher than most people's original perceptions are. Another big perception is that people think that their global team can't be client facing. Now, in some firms, strategies are that they don't want their global team client facing, which is fine. And that comes down to the firm's strategy. But in a lot of cases, our team members based in the Philippines are actually working directly with the clients. And clients are okay with this, and clients are really engaging in this. And in fact, our best clients have now started to introduce what they're calling global team strategy advice to their clients, where they actually help their clients identify what are the types of roles or tasks that you currently spend money on that you could actually outsource at a more cost-effective way to be able to deliver quicker services and a quicker rate. Now, we've obviously heard a big myth is, it's just a fad. It will be replaced when AI comes through. Now, the reality is technology advancements is happening. It's happening at a rapid pace. I think we're still a fair way off, true AI coming into play. But the reality is that people will always be needed in the accounting space as part of the process. Technology will never wipe out the people component. Now, a lot of the people component is process or it's audit. And a big part of, I see the future of accounting is going to be more audit-based roles where you're auditing the data that's going into the systems so that you can then give accurate advice to your clients. Now, a lot of these roles are going to be based offshore. Again, you're not going to have data analysts analyzing the client data on a local basis because their skills are better suited towards other tasks. So we're seeing a lot of the role dynamics for the firms that are really technology savvy starting to change. So we're starting to see that they do have data analysts. They're starting to have a lot more marketing advisory services and a range of other services. So we certainly believe that long-term, this has a real significant strategy for all firms. The types of roles will change and evolve as the industry does, much like we were looking at 7 years ago. Bookkeepers used to do the data entry, but now we're looking at systems like Receipt Bank and HubDoc that now take away 70% of their role. Now, those roles are still relevant in a global team. They're just now doing different types of work. So we're seeing a real evolution and change with how accounting firms are working. And this comes back to now the next point, which I'm going to talk around, which is what are the leading accounting firms doing? And the biggest one that we're seeing, particularly for what we call the average accounting firm, 2 partners, 13 staff, is the average when you look at it from a global perspective. And we're seeing that the CEO or the leader are no longer on the tools. And I'll ask you, if you're a manager or a partner, how much of your time is actually spent sitting in front of the 2 or 3 computer screens at your desk versus sitting in front of clients or on the phone to clients having valuable conversations? Now, when I ask this question, the majority of the answers are, we sit in front of our computers for 7 to 10 hours a day, and if we're lucky, we get to go and visit a client every couple of weeks. Now, what we're seeing the leading firms doing is that their partners they're running their businesses like a business. They will have a CEO. They're having someone manage their emails. And this was the biggest thing when I had my accounting and financial planning firm many years ago now, is that I was averaging anywhere between 250 and 300 emails a day. In some cases, it got up to 450 emails as the team grew. And what that did is it meant that I was either in meetings or I was in front of my computer. What I implemented, which saved me on average 3 to 4 hours per day, was implementing a executive assistant based in the Philippines. So Ethel's now been in this role with me for 5 years, and she on average saved initially in the early days 30% of my time. Now, when I introduced this concept with our clients late last year, we had a significant amount of our clients then go and analyze what do they actually spend their day doing. So as an owner or a partner or a senior leader in the accounting firm, if you were to actually track what you do on a daily basis, you'll be really, really surprised with where you spend your time. Now, what we find in most cases is that a role like an executive assistant can actually take a significant amount of time away. So one of our clients, she did the analysis, she could save on average 2 hours a day, which is 10 hours a week, or over 42 weeks a year. If she only works 42 of the 52 weeks, it's 420 hours a year that she saves. Now, if you multiply that, your accountants, if you multiply that by a charge out rate of $200 to $500 an hour, that's a significant amount of money that she's saving in opportunity now to be able to go and add more value or actually have more of a work-life balance and not have to work as many hours. So we're seeing some real differences with the leading accounting firms in the industry. We're seeing that they're becoming really proactive with clients. So when I asked this question to our clients 3 months ago, when I had all of our clients in one location, I asked them, how many of you would be ringing every client at least every couple of months just to say hi? There's no agenda, you're not following up anything. And I was pleasantly surprised how proactive our clients are. And when I compare that to when I go and speak at an industry event and I ask how many of you would actually ring your clients once a year just to say hello or visit your client once a year, very few hands would go up, if any. And when I asked a follow-up question to say, why aren't you? The biggest question is we don't have time, which if we look back to the poll that we ran at the start of the webinar today, it directly correlates. We are too busy, we're really struggling with capacity. So this is really one of the drivers that proactive firms that have been building global teams are now, most of our clients are now ringing their clients every 3 months as a minimum. One of our firms has a KPI for every one of their Australian team to ring one client every single day and to visit one client every single week. So when you look at that across their whole practice, they're making a significant amount of proactive calls to their clients. They're visiting proactively their clients. Funny enough, what comes out the back of that is a lot more work and a lot more client referrals. If you relate that back to a typical accounting firm that struggles to even get their work out on time, they don't have time to talk to their clients. When a new client out there that is looking for a new accountant, who do you think they're going to choose? The proactive accountant that has time and capacity to be able to really pay attention and help them grow their business, or the accounting firm that has a great reputation because they've been around a long time, but they're just busy being busy. Now we're seeing leading accounting firms really engage and embrace cloud technology, their process, their people. They have all of those sorted. And if they don't have them all sorted perfectly, they've started to work on each of those. It might be cloud first, it may be process second, it may be then linking all of the technology. We're seeing that they're really highly engaged with their staff in a global environment. So if they've got a team in the Philippines, they are highly engaged. They are visiting their team on a regular basis because it's another office within their business. They have really highly engaged clients and they're gaining significant inbound referrals. We're also seeing a longer term benefit for clients. They are having a more profitable firm. They're growing their team locally and globally. And in some cases, some of our clients are even looking at running 24/7 operations. So if a client needs urgent work done, they have the ability to turn it around within a day. So we're going to talk around some of the tips and action plans that we've seen with accounting firms implementing that are working successfully and are really making this whole journey work. And a large part of it is around taking action. It may sound really, really simple, but if nothing changes within your firm, then nothing changes. So how can you expect different results if you're doing nothing differently? So implementing is obviously the key. You can listen to this webinar today, you can take away some great concepts, but are you actually going to do anything with those? Because if you don't expect any different results. What I would challenge you to do with each of your senior staff originally within the practice, and then you can run this down to all levels within the business, is actually get them to write down what are the key things that they spend each day doing. What are the tasks that they do on a daily basis? What are the and then put a tick next to the ones that they enjoy doing. Put a cross next to the ones that they believe are process orientated and they could train someone with a lower skill set to be able to do it, a graduate or a different type of role, and then put in a third column the tasks that they hate doing but they know that they have to do. This will give you a real good basis to look at the value of tasks that are being done within the practice, and what tasks you could actually take off them initially to give them more time to be able to do the work that they should be doing. So a lot of the philosophy around this is pushing the work down so that you can push your local team up. So when we're looking at it, the tasks that you enjoy doing but you don't have time to do, a lot of the time that's actually the client interactive work. So the task that you would give a PA or an EA, and that's more for a partner, but when we're looking at it from an accountant, how much of your accountant's time is spent doing administration? And a huge part of it, when you look at it statistically from any of the research that I've seen, it's on average 400 hours a year an accountant will spend on administration. Now, are they doing the right type of work? If they're a highly skilled and highly educated accountant, why are they doing administration? So we're going to look at, and I challenge you to do this with your senior team, do it with yourself, really analyze where you're spending your time, and is that the best use of your time? I'd highly recommend you listen to some of the podcasts. A lot of our clients have been successfully offshoring now for 3 to 5 years. I interviewed a gentleman today from the US, Luke Green. He's only been doing this process for 6 months, but he's absolutely nailing how it's done. So we interview and release on a weekly basis, a interview with one of our clients that's successfully been able to build and scale an offshore team. And it really talks around the common challenges that firms are having, not with a global team necessarily, but just what are the capacity issues that they're having? What are they doing to be able to grow and scale their team? What are the technology systems and tools that they're using that are different to most firms are using? How do they get scale from technology before they get scale from people? So we're really seeing some really valuable insights from a range of different accounting firms, from sole practitioners right up to large second and first tier firms on these podcasts. So I do highly recommend that you do listen to these. You can go to the outsourcedaccountant.com. Under our resources page, you'll see these podcasts, and there's a range of them there that are released on a weekly basis, or you can go directly to iTunes or SoundCloud. So if anyone does have any questions, please add these in, and I'll try and answer these. We've got roughly 5 to 10 minutes left in the webinar that I'll try and answer as many questions as I can. I know the team behind the scenes are answering a lot of the questions that are coming through from you, but I'm just going to run a quick poll while we do wait for a few questions to come through, to offer anyone that is on the webinar today that wants to learn more information about how to build a global team or around how leading firms are doing this. Would you like a free consultation with one of our local global team specialists? Just pop a yes or a no in there if you're interested in having a chat to us, and we'll reach out to you once the webinar ends to be able to discuss how this may be able to be an applicable strategy for your firm. So we'll quickly run that for another 5 or 10 seconds before we finish off. So there's a large amount of you that do, so we'll be in touch with you within the next 24 to 48 hours to have a chat to you about how we can help you along this journey. So for anyone that is on the webinar today, I'm happy to also announce that we are launching our Australian-based roadshow, and it is all around, is technology really growing your firm? How do you maximize technology and people to help you grow the capacity and your accounting firm? We're also really, really happy to say that we've got the Rob Nixon as one of our speakers at the roadshow, who will be talking around how can you maximize the profitability per partner so that you can maximize $1 million profit per partner per firm. And a lot of growth strategies, a lot of just practical tips around how to grow and scale an accounting firm. So for our Australian-based clients, we're bringing this to places all around the country. So if you go to our website, theoutsourcedaccountant.com, under resources, you can go to the roadshow and you can book in there. We do have a half-day event in the afternoon for our clients only. Our clients will attend both the morning and the afternoon, but for anyone that's not a client of ours, you're welcome to join us in the morning, and you'll certainly learn a lot with these guest speakers that we do have. So please book in early because spots are limited. So you can go to our website for that. As I mentioned before, please jump onto our podcast. It's it's definitely, you will definitely take things away. They're 20 to 40 minute podcasts on a weekly basis, so they're not long. You can listen to them in the car, and I can guarantee that you will take something away from every one that you can implement to make your firm a better firm. We've also got a weekly newsletter called The Ledger, which you can subscribe to, which all of our webinars and any content that we have around helping scaling and growing firms comes out on a weekly basis with that. Our next webinar is on the 11th of July and is all based around, is technology really growing your firm? Technology and client service, future-proofing your workforce and growing your firm to $1 million+ per partner. Now, we understand, and this links into our roadshow, that a lot of firms are implementing a lot of technology, but they're not doing it effectively. It's not helping them scale and grow their firms. So the webinar, book in for this. It is live on our website, the 11th of July at 12 o'clock, same time as today. And again, we'll cover off this topic. So we're answering most of the questions behind the scenes. So if anyone does have any further questions, please reach out to us. We're really excited for you to be able to attend today. We hope you've got some value out of it. The one piece of advice that I will say is that no matter what you've learned today, if you don't implement anything, nothing's going to change. So please take away those key points that you've learned today, implement, and at the end of the day, we're here to add more value to our clients to help them grow their businesses, which will in return help grow our businesses. So thank you for investing an hour of your time, or just under an hour of your time today, to listen to what we have to educate you on. We're here to help you on this journey, so please feel free to reach out to us on our numbers or on our email or on any of the social platforms, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you all at a local event soon. So thank you for your time today. Look forward to chatting to you all very soon.